Good morning, children. Today we will start the next topic of the chapter, Mahatma Gandhi and the Nationalist movement. So far we discussed about the Swadeshi movement, opening lecture of Mahatma Gandhi at the opening of BHU. We discussed about the non-cooperation movement. We discussed about the Chori Chora incident, Jallianwala Bagh massacre, Rowlatt Act. Now after the non-cooperation movement, Gandhiji remained inactive in the political arena and he did some social reform during that time. Then again he came back in the political arena and he started a new movement, and that movement was the civil disobedience movement. So we will discuss about that civil disobedience movement and salt satyagraha in today's lecture. So first of all we will read about the background in which this movement was started. So a salt satyagraha, a case study. You can see that there is an image, and this is the image of John Simon. So John Simon was the head of a statutory committee which was sent to India, and they wanted to change the law of India while doing a survey in the Indian subcontinent. But since the committee which was headed by Sir John Simon, a commission which was sent in India under the leadership of Sir John Simon, it did not comprise any of the Indian person. As a result, it was boycotted by the Indian people. So we will discuss about that now, Simon Commission. So background and major political event which occurred between 1928 to 30. So these were the 2 years which were very crucial, and these were the regions which we are going to discuss during this time, which were responsible for the civil disobedience movement in India. In 1927, the Simon Commission was appointed to inquire into the conditions in the colony, and the head of that Simon Commission was Sir John Simon. As a result, the Simon Commission was named after him. But when it came to India, it was boycotted by the Indian people, and the commission was welcomed by the slogan, "Go back Simon, Simon wapis jao." In 1928, there was an all India campaign in opposition to the all white commission sent to India. Why it is called all white commission? Because there was no member in this commission who was Indian. Since the reform in the law or the constitution was made for Indians, but it did not included any Indian person. As a result, this commission was boycotted by the Indian people. Gandhiji did not himself participate in this movement, since he was engaged in a peasant satyagraha in Bardoli. So the agitation which was going against the Simon Commission, and the slogan was the "Go back Simon," but Gandhiji directly did not participate in this movement because he was busy in another movement simultaneously, and that movement was Bardoli Satyagraha, and it was a peasant movement which was started by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel along with Mahatma Gandhi. So Vallabhbhai Patel also became an important leader after this movement. Second major event of that time was the Lahore Session of Congress. So it is known for various reasons. The Lahore Session of Congress was very important session of Congress, and it was important for 2 reasons. Those reasons we will discuss here. So Lahore Session of Congress, you can see that this is the image of Lahore Session of Congress, and a person is giving speech to the gathering, and that is Jawaharlal Nehru, which could be identified from this picture. In the end of the December 1929, the Congress held its annual session in the city of Lahore. The meeting was significant for 2 reasons. First reason is that the election of Jawaharlal Nehru as the president, signifying the passing of the leadership to the Congress to younger generation. So far, the president of the Congress used to be the aged people, older people, but first time a young person became the president of INC, Indian National Congress, and that was Jawaharlal Nehru. And he was more radical in nature as compared to those leaders who used to be liberal in the past. So first time a radical person became the president of Congress. And the second is that proclamation of commitment to Purn Swaraj. So far, the Indian movement which was started against the Britishers, they were not talking about the Purn Swaraj, and no Congress session forever so far demand for the Purn Swaraj. So this was the first session which demanded the Purn Swaraj, and it was said that on 26 January 1930, Independence Day would be observed throughout India, and on that day national flag would be hoisted at different venues. So it was also a declaration of this Lahore Session that the Indian people would celebrate the Independence Day on 26 January 1930, and wherever is possible national flag would be hoisted, and on that particular day we would do some service to the nation, and we would leave all our work which we do in the routine days. So that was the declaration which was made in the Lahore Session of 1930. That's why it is significant for two reasons. First, the election of Jawaharlal Nehru as the President of Congress. Second, the demand for Purn Swaraj. And that's why on 26 January we executed our constitution in our country. The constitution was ready in the on November 26, but still we waited for almost 2 months, and we executed our constitution in India on 26 January 1950. So on 26 January, why we executed our constitution? Just to commemorate that day when the Purn Swaraj declaration was made, and to commemorate the day 26 January of 1930, we implemented the constitution in India on 26 January 1950. Now we will discuss about the Salt Satyagraha, which was started after that. The Salt Satyagraha. Soon after the observance of the Independence Day, the state monopoly over salt, which was deeply unpopular, was made a target. Now there was salt law in India, and according to that law, no one else except the government could manufacture the salt. And as we know that salt is an essential commodity which is utilized by everyone, whether it is Hindu, Muslim or any other religion. So salt was the basic need of Indian people, and there was heavy taxes which used to be imposed upon the salt manufacturing, and salt monopoly was in the hand of the British company. As a result, this was very unpopular act of the government, British government of India. So this was made the target by the nationalist leader, and Mahatma Gandhi chose salt as the major issue for the movement, that was the Salt Satyagraha. Gandhiji hoped to mobilize a wider level of discontent against the British rule, because salt is a thing which belongs to everybody. So in the name of the salt, the people would be united for a nationwide movement. So Mahatma Gandhi chose salt as the main issue. Salt was an indispensable item in every Indian house. People were forbidden from making salt even for domestic use. British compelled them to buy salt from a shop at a higher prices because a lot of taxes used to be imposed upon the salt. Gandhiji had given advance notice of this salt law or against this salt law, and he wanted to start a salt march, and he gave an advance notice to the Lord Irvine, who used to be the Governor General of India or Viceroy of India at that time, who failed to grab the significance of the action. So Mahatma Gandhi gave an advance notice to the Viceroy of India of that time, that is Lord Irvine, that he is going to start a salt march against the salt law which was there in India. So he did not understand the significance of that notice, and he undermined the power of Mahatma Gandhi. As a result, the movement which was started by Mahatma Gandhi became a very popular and wide scale movement, because the Britishers were failed to understand the significance of that salt march. As we discussed that the Britishers were not able to grab the significance of the salt march. As a result, finally the demand which was given by Gandhiji, and these were the 11 demands which was given to the Lord Irvine, that if these demands would not be fulfilled by 11th of March, then they will start this salt march, and finally because the Britishers did not accept the demand of Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi started the Salt March. So he started his Salt March on 12th March 1930. So we will discuss about this Salt March. You can see that Mahatma Gandhi started his march along with the followers. This is Mahatma Gandhi and this is Sarojini Naidu. She was also a follower of Mahatma Gandhi. So on 12th March 1930, Gandhiji began his march from his Sabarmati ashram towards the ocean. So Sabarmati was his ashram where he used to reside. From there he started his march to the sea, and that was of 240 miles. He reached Dandi 3 weeks later and made a handful of salt and thereby breaking the law. So he covered the total distance from Sabarmati to Dandi, and it was of 240 miles, and that was covered by him in 24 days. So each day he used to walk 10 miles per day. So this was the course of Salt March, and on the way he used to attend the meetings. He used to give his speech to the people, and more people started joining Mahatma Gandhi's march, and it became enlarged till that time it reached to the ocean. And after reaching the Dandi, which was a coastal town on the Arabian Sea coast, and he made salt, a fistful salt was made by Mahatma Gandhi, and in this way he made himself criminal in the eyes of the British law, and he broke the salt law. The parallel salt marches were also conducted in different parts of the country, and which were also identical to the salt march which was conducted by Mahatma Gandhi, and they also broke the law. So there were many people who broke the salt law which was made by the Britishers, and that was the beginning of a movement, and that movement is called as the civil disobedience movement. Now what is the basic difference between non-cooperation and civil disobedience movement? In non-cooperation, Mahatma Gandhi asked people not to cooperate with the existing law of the British. He did not ask them to break the law. But in civil disobedience movement, they were violating the law. And the first law which was violated by Mahatma Gandhi, that was by manufacturing the salt. That's why Salt March is very important event of the civil disobedience movement. Parallel salt marches and protests were also conducted in other parts of the country. Now we will read further about the Salt March. Peasants breached the hated colonial forest laws that kept them, and then cut out the woods in which they had once roamed freely. So this is about the forest law. So there was a forest law. According to that forest law, now the forest people who used to live in those forests, they cannot make any harm to the forest. Earlier they used to be dependent upon the forest for the firewood, for collecting the fodder for their animal. They used to graze their animal in those forests. So the forest was the basic of their life. As a result, they could not survive without the forest. But according to the colonial policy, now they could not roam freely in those forest areas, and they cannot cut the wood from that forest. So they hated this forest law. So when Gandhiji broke the salt law, the people in India also broke the forest laws. In some towns, factory workers went on strike, while lawyers boycotted the British law courts, and students refused to attend the government-run educational institution. The same kind of happening also took place as it used to be in the non-cooperation movement, that students stopped going to the school, and the advocates stopped attending the law courts, and the people who used to do job in their services, in the government services, they stopped going into their offices. So that was also done during this salt movement. As in 1920-22, now to Gandhiji call had encouraged Indians of all classes to manifest their own discontent with the colonial rule. During the march, Gandhiji told the upper caste that if they want Swaraj, they must serve untouchables. Hindu, Muslim, Parsi, Sikhs have to unite and these are steps towards the Swaraj. So these kind of speeches was delivered by Mahatma Gandhi at different occasions during the Salt March, because after every 10 miles he used to have a halt, and he used to gather the public over there, and he used to tell that gathering about the objective of Mahatma Gandhi, and he used to generally talk about the Swaraj, and he used to say that if the Indian wants Swaraj, then they have to be united irrespective of their caste, creed and religion. If untouchables would remain cut off from the mainstream of the country, Swaraj could not come for the next 100 years. So upper caste people have to be tolerant towards the untouchables. They also should serve the untouchables. Only then we would be able to win the Swaraj. Now what the Britishers thought about the Salt March, and what news was covered by the magazines and newspaper of that time, that we will discuss here. The police spies reported that all men and women and all caste attended the meeting of Gandhiji, and this was reported through various newspapers and magazines that people were enthusiastically attending the meeting which was conducted by Gandhiji. They observed that thousands of volunteers were flocking to the national cause, for the national independence, for the freedom. Thousands of people used to gather to hear Mahatma Gandhi. The Salt March of Gandhiji was reported in the American news agency, that is the Time also. In its report on the march, the magazine was deeply skeptical of the Salt March reaching its destination. So this is the viewpoint of the Time magazine, which is till date an important magazine of the world. So it wrote about Gandhiji's Salt March. Initially it was very doubtful about the march of Mahatma Gandhi, because the magazine wrote that the distance from Sabarmati to the ocean is 240 miles. And Gandhiji was just like a skeleton of bones. He is not having that power that he would be able to reach from Sabarmati to ocean, and he could be able to cover 240 miles because he used to be very thin. But when the march was going on, and when people started joining this march enthusiastically, Time magazine also changed its viewpoint, and it started writing high about Mahatma Gandhi. Earlier it used to make mockery of Mahatma Gandhi, but now it changed its opinion, and it started writing very high things, very high opinion about Mahatma Gandhi. But shortly it changed its view and saluted Gandhiji as the saint. So the saint was called by Time magazine, and statesman means a people's leader, they call Mahatma Gandhi. And the rulers responded by detaining the dissenters in the wake of the Salt March in 1930, and nearly 60,000 Indians were arrested, among them of course Gandhiji himself. So now the repression of the government started, and many congressmen and many people who attended the Salt March, who conducted the Salt March and who violated the laws, they were imprisoned, they were arrested. And Gandhiji himself became a criminal after breaking the salt law, so he was also arrested, and they all put into the prison. So nearly 60,000 people all around India were arrested during this salt movement. Now what was the significance of this Salt March? So significance of the Salt March. The Salt March was notable for at least 3 reasons. So there are mainly 3 reasons for which the Salt March is known. Firstly, this event brought Mahatma Gandhi to world attention. First of all, something was written about Mahatma Gandhi, so he became a leader worldwide, and he came to the world's attention. Secondly, because the march was widely covered by the European and American press which we have already discussed, that is the Time magazine. So these magazines and newspapers covered the course of Mahatma Gandhi's march, and they wrote high about Mahatma Gandhi, and in this way Mahatma Gandhi became an international leader. Secondly, it was the first nationalist activity in which women participated in large number. earlier in non-cooperation movement and some other kind of movement which was conducted there. At that time, a very less number of women used to participate. But this was the march for the first time where a large number of participation of women was seen. Like we have seen that Sarojini Naidu was also one of the companion of Mahatma Gandhi during this march. The socialist activist Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay had persuaded Gandhiji not to restrict the protest to men alone. She herself courted arrest by breaking salt and liquor laws. So it was on the persuasion of the companion of Mahatma Gandhi, that is Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, and she advised Mahatma Gandhi not to restrict the women's entry into the salt march because Gandhiji was of a different kind of opinion. Gandhiji believed that women should confine themselves to their household, they should look after their family, and they should not participate in public activities. But after the persuasion of Kamala Bai, Gandhiji allowed women to participate in the salt march. As a result, the women became very enthusiastic and a large number of women participated in the salt march which was conducted by Mahatma Gandhi. The third thing which was very significant about salt march, and it was that it made the British realize that their rule was not to last forever. Means now they could not rule forever on a country like India, because it is the movement which shaken their foundation in India. Would have to share some power with the Indians. To discuss the same, the British tried to hold a round table conference in London to get to some kind of resolution. So now British also realized that some sort of power would be given to the Indians. Otherwise they would not be able to rule India for a long period of time. And to discuss the amendments in the Constitution of India, in the laws of India, they wanted to conduct a meeting with Indian counterparts. As a result, they organized meetings, and these meetings are called as the round table conferences. So there were total 3 round table conferences in which Mahatma Gandhi participated only in one, that is the second round table conference. So here we will discuss about those round table conferences. So a pact was signed by Mahatma Gandhi and Lord Irvine, because many congressmen along with Mahatma Gandhi were in the prison. So the government offered them that if they would sign the pact with Lord Irvine, all the prisoners of civil disobedience movement would be released. So a pact was materialized between Mahatma Gandhi and Lord Irvine, and that pact is known as the Gandhi-Irvine Pact. So we will discuss about that. In January 1930, Mahatma Gandhi was released from jail. After that, many meetings were held with the Viceroy, and it culminated the Gandhi-Irvine Pact. It was declared to call off civil disobedience movement, all prisoners who were put in jail without trial to be released, and to allow salt manufacturing along the coast. Gandhiji represented the Congress at second round table conference at Lahore. So the first round table conference, which was conducted by the British in London, that was not attended by Mahatma Gandhi, but according to this new pact, that is Gandhi-Irvine Pact, Mahatma Gandhi would attend the second round table conference, which was going to be scheduled in London. This was the term and condition. The second term was that all the prisoners who were imprisoned during the civil disobedience movement would be released after this pact, along with Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was also released, and the people who are living near the coast, they would be given the right to manufacture the salt. So the salt law, which was the most hated law in India, was abolished after this pact, and this pact is known as the Gandhi-Irvine Pact. Now according to the term and condition of Gandhi-Irvine Pact, now Mahatma Gandhi had to attend the round table conference. So let's see whether he attended the round table conference or not, and what happened after that. So we discussed that a pact was materialized between Mahatma Gandhi and Irvine, and according to that pact, now Mahatma Gandhi was to attend the round table conference which was scheduled in London. So what happened there, that we will discuss here. So the round table conference was held in 1930. The first round table conference which was held in November 1930. But that round table conference was boycotted by Congress and Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi did not attend this round table conference because at that time civil disobedience movement was running in India and Mahatma Gandhi did not go there. That's why this round table conference was totally inconclusive, because the most important leaders of India were absent from that round table conference, and that also include Mahatma Gandhi. The second round table conference was held in 1931, and according to the Gandhi-Irvine Pact, this conference was to be attended by Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi went there. Mahatma Gandhi went to London to attend this round table conference. And there were many other Indian leaders from different parties and different sections. They were also attended the meeting. And the chief of the princely states which were there in India at that time, they were also present in that meeting. And in that meeting, when the meeting was going on, Mahatma Gandhi declared that he is the representative of India because the Congress is the representative of India. And that was the thing which was opposed by the people who were present there, including B.R. Ambedkar, who was the chief of Depressed Class Association, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who was the chief of Muslim League. As a result, and this also remained inconclusive, and a final conclusion could not be drawn upon. The conference in London was inconclusive, so Mahatma Gandhi returned to India. Because this meeting also remained inconclusive because of the opposition of B.R. Ambedkar and some other leaders who were present there, and they were all from India. As a result, Mahatma Gandhi became very disappointed and he returned back to India. Now he wanted to relaunch the civil disobedience movement which was called off by Mahatma Gandhi after the Gandhi-Irvine Pact, but this movement could not regain its course or its momentum as it had earlier before the calling of the civil disobedience movement. And finally, after some time, this movement lost its momentum and the movement was stopped finally. So that is all about the civil disobedience movement.